What's up? Product reviews all day here, folks. We are going old school today. And what are we doing? We're reviewing it. Just like that LL Cool J song, doing it well. We're reviewing it well. Reviewing it well. Reviewing it well. Look at that bad boy. This is the Kershaw 1050 folding field vintage knife. This is from I believe the 90s. They made a few different variations of this knife. Look at that beauty. Now, if you're familiar with folding field knives like the Buck 110 or the Schrade LB7, this is going to be in the similar vein of those knives. This is the Kershaw folding field, made by Kai, Japan. Kai Cutlery in Japan. I believe it's Seki City, but I'm not 100% positive on that. So Pete Kershaw, what he did was, Pete Kershaw came from Gerber, and Gerber had some designs that I believe he was a part of. He took those designs, he sent them to Kai Cutlery in Japan when he branched off and started his own company. And this is what Kai Japan came back to him with. I believe that's the story. And that was the birth of this knife. I think the first year they made this model, the 1050 folding field, was in 1979, I believe. Beautiful brass bolsters. This is some kind of plastic resin. It's not, like usually these knives have like a wood brass bolsters with wood grain handles. This is more like a injected thermoplastic type resin material. And look at that grip on there. The way that this thing fits in your hand. The way that, it's kind of like when you hold Play-Doh. You know when you take like a big wad of Play-Doh and then you squeeze it down in your hand and it makes like the fingerprints in there? That's how this knife feels in your hand. Unbelievable. That jimping on the back. I can't verify this, but I would almost say that jimping was hand filed. This knife was made by master craftsmen in Japan. There is a model of the Kershaw 1050 folding field in the Samurai Museum in Seki City. There's an example of this knife in the Samurai Museum. That's how iconic this knife is. Like I said, they made 3 different iterations. I think they made an iteration from like 80 to 88, and then they made one from like 88 to 92, and then from 92 to 98, blah, blah, blah. I think this is the 90s model. The tang stamp was a little bit different on each model, and I think this one was made sometime in the early 1990s, which would make this knife about 30 years old. It's so heavy. If you've ever felt a Buck 110 or a Schrade LB7, they're substantial knives. They have some heft to them, but this knife is even heavier than both of those. Like I was saying, this knife was made by master craftsmen in Japan. So I feel like even this jimping on here was all done with hand filing. I feel like, I can't verify that, but the notches don't all look exactly even. So to me, that almost equates with that being hand filed, which just shows you how much time and work went into this knife. It walks and talks beautifully, super tight snap. It's just an absolutely unbelievable knife. I'm speechless by it. And this thing's old. It's beat up. You got patina on the brass. But I love it. It's beautiful. But I paid $100 for this thing. In this condition, off the bay, I still paid $100 for this knife. So that just shows you kind of how iconic and how kind of rare, not necessarily rare, but there's not a lot of these floating around. There's a ton of LB7s and a ton of 110s floating around. But you don't see many Kershaw folding field 1050s out there. You don't see many. And it's, so if you're looking for a really cool knife that's made by master craftsmen in Japan, an example of it is in the Samurai Museum in Seki City. Just an absolutely beautiful knife. The Kershaw Folding Field, made by Kai Japan, the 1050 model. It's just unreal. Kershaw 1050. Even in this condition, still a $100 knife. Beautiful piece. Product reviews all day, signing out. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Peace.